Yesterday in Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns introduced Odell Beckham Jr. as their newest team member. He is, by anyone's accounts, a superstar in media, social media, and the National Football League. In terms of talent, he has it. And yet it was kind of an interesting press conference. Like, OBJ doesn't seem to have the desire or maybe ability to be up on a stage by himself. And so they brought in Jarvis Landry, of course, his longtime friend, former college teammate. They brought in Baker Mayfield. But they also brought in Myles Garrett, who might be their best player, was a defensive player, and they had the four players up there. And it struck me that over the last year, the Cleveland Browns have added three of their four best players, right? Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry comes over from Miami, and now Odell Beckham Jr., as opposed to their division rival, right? I guess there has to be a rivalry, although both the games are usually close between these teams. Even when Cleveland didn't win a game 2 years ago, their games with the Steelers, I believe one was incredibly close. But their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, have done the opposite. I'd make the argument that the Pittsburgh Steelers have jettisoned two of their four best players and really have lost their three best players. Ryan Shazier, unfortunately, to injury. Le'Veon Bell, contract holdout, and now is a free agent, signs with the Jets, and they trade away Antonio Brown. Like, I'm not saying that Ben Roethlisberger isn't a great player and historically great player and a Hall of Famer, but he's not in the prime of his career. I would consider him probably the fourth best player for the Pittsburgh Steelers going back to midseason last season before Shazier got hurt. So think about this for a second. The Steelers, who yesterday we shared with you, Vegas put their over-under at 9, is the exact same as the Cleveland Browns, over-under at 9. The Browns are all talent, all player, all ego, very little about the coach, very little about the culture. The exact opposite in Pittsburgh, where it's about Mike Tomlin regaining control of his locker room, all about regaining control of the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The standard is the standard, which is it is what it is of the NFL, right? That's what the Steelers say. The standard is the standard. It is what it is. It's never what it's not. But the Steelers have decided that they're going to do character and culture above talent. The Browns are going to do talent above character and culture. That doesn't mean that they have bad guys. It's just combustible. And you have Freddie Kitchens, who was a running back coach this time last year. Like, this is a fascinating experience. Like, watching two teams who play each other twice in the same division have complete opposite views of what's going to succeed in the National Football League. And as impressive as the talent is in Cleveland, and it's inarguable. Like, do I think Jarvis Landry is a superstar wide receiver? No. But if he's your second best receiver, that's not bad. You got Njoku's, of course, a super talented in terms of upside potential at tight end. And then you have Odell Beckham Jr. and a litany of quality running backs, including one who led the National Football League in rushing a couple years ago, granted suspended for half the season. And you got Baker Mayfield, who has shown the ability to take over a room and to lead a football team. But it does on some level come down to leadership. He couldn't be more right. Training camp is a big portion. Building a team is important. And can you get all of these incredible pieces to work together? We talked about this yesterday with college basketball, which is, it's not always about the individual pieces. It's about the connection, the cohesion. Heck, relationships are about this. Sometimes you have two really, evenly matched, good-looking people. I mean, in relationships, you can't have one person be a woman be a 10 and a dude be a 5, right? Like, it just doesn't. You got to kind of both be good-looking people, both be average-looking people, both, the woman should be slightly above that of the guy. That's generally how it works. But you don't have a dude who's got a nose coming out the side of his face with acne problems going out with a 10. We all make judgments about what that, it's about. But there is something to relationship that lasts. It's about a connection. It's about chemistry. The same is true in sports. We saw it play out in college basketball, right? Michigan State last year, 2 lottery picks, but maybe there's some agendas. Maybe there's some inexperience. Maybe there's a roster imbalance. And you don't end up having the success that this year's team that starts a former walk-on at power forward and is missing their second best player, goes to the Final Four. Sure, there's luck that factors into it, but there's also the idea that cohesion, that chemistry, that connection, it makes relationships last, it makes teams better. And even an inexperienced coach, Freddie Kitchen, who's only been an interim coach before, understands that. The question is, can he create that? And what happens when they hit adversity? Because adversity really exposes. The Pittsburgh Steelers are an organization that historically overcomes adversity. They stand by their head coaches. They value character and guys taking slightly less money and doing things kind of the solid way, the long-term play as opposed to the short-term play. I can think of no more two fascinating teams to compare to each other throughout the life of the NFL season than the Steelers, who have decided to shut off Ben Roethlisberger from his radio show, get social media out of their locker room, get rid of their most talented pieces. Don't get it twisted now. Le'Veon Bell is a superstar. Antonio Brown is a superstar. Those guys can play football. But they're valuing character over talent. Doesn't mean that character can be talent if they have no talent. But if there's a continuum, right, and on one side you have character, on one side you have talent, the Steelers have decided to be on the character side, and the Browns have decided to be on the talent side and trying to build that cohesion, trying to build that football team. And to do so with the rookie head coach, look, John Dorsey's already done his job. John Dorsey is not a guy that values anything other than can you play the sport? Because he had Andy Reid to figure that all out in Kansas City. He had a longtime veteran head coach that everybody respects, and if you don't respect, you're gone. Andy Reid is legit first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he decides to call it quits. Does that same idea work in Cleveland when you don't have a history of success, you don't have a head coach that's a proven commodity, and oh yeah, by the way, look, you're not going to find another Baker Mayfield. And John Dorsey isn't going anywhere. So if things go bad, the head coach is the first to go, and we get back on that turnstile thing at head coaching with the Cleveland Browns. This one's going to be amazing. Do you want me to call it? If I was to call it, I would say it's less likely to work than it is to work, because we've seen the Patriots, and the Patriots have done the opposite of this. Get rid of the egos, the guys that want the money and the attention, and stand by the dudes that'll take a little bit less. It doesn't mean that Brady doesn't have an ego or that Gronk didn't as well. But it means at the right times, they were willing to sacrifice those egos. Brady running the football more, Gronk becoming a better blocker, and the guys that weren't were gone. The history of the New England Patriots, when it's properly told, is told about building an entire team, valuing character over talent, which is what Pittsburgh's trying to copy. Browns are going the opposite. How does it play out? Going to be absolutely fascinating to watch over the next 12 months.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.